This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions.
Hi, this is Joe Rabil with a stock market update for Friday morning. So most of the market conditions looking okay. We're going to run through those individually, especially when we get into the trend and momentum. We're going to go through the different time frames. But there's a couple of holdouts, and we've got one market condition that's being stubborn. That is a concern. It's a risk factor that we definitely need to pay attention to. And then there's another that is starting to kind of creep a little bit too high, and we're going to go through that, and I'm going to show you why that is something we need to watch as well. Let's go ahead and get going with that. Now, if you have an interest in learning more about some of these techniques, especially when I get into the multiple time frame analysis, you can start with the book. It's at rabilstockresearch.com/book. And also, if you enjoy the content, please hit that like button and also subscribe. Okay, so we're going to start out with the bottom. We're going to go from the bottom up. I'm a bottom up guy, so we'll start with the sentiment, and it jumped pretty significantly from 31% more bulls than bears up to 36%. Now we know that what's been taking place is that when the market drops, the bulls drop, right? And when the market goes up, the bulls go up. I mean that's pretty typical. But it's been very consistent. There's a high correlation to the market action and the bulls and the bears right now, and it almost always is. But to me, right now, it's a little bit more blatant. So we need to recognize that. But we're getting up into a region, so it's not the direction of it necessarily. It's the fact that we're getting up into this region now. I think it's a little bit more worrisome when we get across the 40% threshold. Okay, but the number of bulls is up in the kind of worrisome zone. We've got a lot of bulls right now. So just something we want to watch. It's still only in the neutral camp just because it's on that edge. I didn't move it, but it's something we're going to watch, especially now that we're overbought in the short term. Now, the trend and momentum are all positive, both on all time frames now. I'm going to show you how all that confirmed this week. Some of the things we've been talking about and looking for all kind of clicked into place. All right, and then you've got positive daily momentum and negative weekly momentum. So let's go ahead and start looking at these a little bit more closely. So what we're trying to find is trend to the upside in a specific time frame, let's say on the daily, right, with declining volatility. Okay, when we have that, when the volatility, the 80 average true range is dropping below its moving average like this, and the trend is above, and I a lot of times I'll have the 40 up, right? And if both these lines are rising, we have a positive trend, price is above, making higher highs and higher lows, and it's doing it on lower volatility. That's a good sign for that time frame. All right. Now on this time frame, we have the same thing. The trend is up, okay, but the volatility is up as well, and it's hanging. It's still a little worrisome, especially now that we've gotten overbought. Now, the good news about getting overbought here, and this is what I mentioned last week, and this is why I call it potential divergence. Last week, this peak was here and this peak was down here, right? Even though we were at a new high last week. And I said, you don't call this divergence until we get a little bit of confirmation in price. We have not had that. It just keeps creeping higher. Well, now all of a sudden we're getting the confirmation in RSI. This is going to save you a lot of money when you're trading using divergences. You got to be really careful. You need some form of price confirmation. The most aggressive type of confirmation would just be taking out a prior bars low or something like that. But to me, I typically am looking at, a re-entry of the breakout or a break of the 18 MA or something, some sign that's a little bit more significant. All right. So in both of these, we've got, a pretty decent overall action, especially when you look at the moving averages. The daily has a much better situation in place when it comes to the average true range and the volatility. So this is a concern, and we're going to need to watch. Does the pullback cause this to go up like that again, right? I mean, I think we'll get a pullback at some point. Now, I don't know if the week's going to, we got one more day, so I don't know if the week's going to finish like that, okay? But if it is, then that's sort of an indecision bar, a little doji pattern. And then maybe we look for a little bit of a pullback here, and we've got to see the size of the next couple weeks bars will tell us whether we come down through here and this rolls back down, and that's very bullish, or we turn back up and make another new high, and that would be a major concern. I don't think this is going to do this if we go up. I think it'll only do that if we turn down. All right, let's switch over to the individual time frames, and we can start out with the monthly, which just kind of keeps motoring along, okay? And I want to point out, so let's just look at, that's November, December. Here's January of 24, all right? So that's this bar right here. Now, that's the low bar of the year. And look at what we've done. We've basically just gone. So if I were to draw in, we opened, we had a small little dip, and now we've gone like that. So right now, that's what the yearly bar looks like. It's a very bullish bar, okay? If we can make it through this month, then I think there's a pretty good chance that the bar is going to finish looking like this, meaning we open near the low, close near the high. It's going to be a big green bar, right? I mean, that's not a big green bar, but it opened near the low, closed near the high, and it's going to be a pretty good size bar. So we want to just kind of see how we go through this month. I think this month will be really important. Now, I do recognize November, we flip over and we get the election. That could cause a little volatility, but unless there's a massive, massive surprise come November 5th or whatever, then I don't think we'll get a reversal off that. It could cause one of the something like this, but I would still be looking for, if we make it through October, I'd still be looking for probably a trend year. So it's just something I keep it in the back of my mind. This is a secondary concept. It is not a primary, okay? That means I'm not making any decisions off this. I'm just kind of keeping it in the back of my mind. But we want to watch and see what's taking place on this weekly. As it's moved up, we had a narrow range bar and then a sideways kind of small bar, and then we started to pick up, and now we've got another kind of tiny bar. I mean, the dynamics are not all that great, but look at what happened here. Look at what we've done. We've made a higher high on this time frame. We have confirmed. Now, I'd like to see the volume get up a little bit better, at least to, closer to average volume or something like that. MACD has not made a new high, but it has made a high above this peak. You see that? So we've made a higher high here. So we're comparing against the last swing. So there's a swing top and there's a swing top. So we want to compare those, and we have the confirmation. This is why, again, I call it potential divergence, not divergence. So it's been potential divergence for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and now we get the confirmation by hitting a new high and the DI confirming. So that's why I haven't really been telling subscribers to say, hey, I think you can still keep playing, even though these aren't really confirming, because they could confirm. Now, what typically happens, and what happened last week, is that this finally confirmed by coming back up here, and the ADX and the DI both confirmed at the same time, going above this red DI and ADX crossing above 25. Again, the volume hasn't really been good. I mean, we had a big volume selling day and a big volume selling day. That's not really what we want. We want to see better volume action. But I would say right now, we've gotten enough confirmation. I mean, MACD is only a double top, even though we've made a higher high. But I think we've seen enough confirmation here that I think we can respect what's taking place. Now, I don't really like the last 2 of the last 3 days. If you notice, we kind of tried to open, and then red bar shows up, and then today or Thursday we gapped up and then kind of gave it back. So not ideal, but the volume really wasn't heavy. Now, if you notice, this is a green bar because it was up. I'm on Thinkorswim. I'm doing Thinkorswim this time. I'm trying to use a couple different programs for different people. But one thing I'll say is that the volume, I have to find the other volume, because I prefer to use the volume based on the open. So if it's a red bar, I want this to be red as well. That's not really showing here. But either way, it's a light volume day. It's not like there was a lot of selling that's going on. I think we need to watch this 18 above the 40, both lines rising at about the same rate, and we have a low volatility on this time frame. The bigger concern is the bigger time frame, not the smaller one, not the daily. I think the daily could pull back, but I don't know that I'm looking for anything severe at this point. The weekly doesn't really have any ADX confirmation, but the green DI is finally getting started. And we have a high volatility pattern. So if we get a violent pullback, then this is going to look like a pretty strong divergence pattern. You see what I mean? Like, we're just getting this going, but let's say that fails because we get a big red bar. Volatility kicks back up and the ADX can't move above 25. It fails to confirm. Then we've got a bit of a problem that's developed. Now, I'm not really expecting that, just because we're in a trend year, and every single time the market's dropped, it just keeps going. It just keeps turning back up. Look at all, we got one red bar in the month, right, of the monthlies, and the rest are green. So yeah, is it possible it could just start selling off? I mean, yeah, it's possible. I just don't think it's all that likely. Now, we go to the minor time frame. We'll say we do have a decent little divergence off this gap and kind of crap out. We've got a little divergence in the MACD. ADX did make it above 25, but not really very strong, and it's below the 30 level. So, it's possible we're maybe setting up for a little bit of a pullback just based on what's taking place here. We can draw this in. We've broken the uptrend line. We've tested the high with a minor new high, right? This is the 2. This is right out of my course. You can do a 2 that way. The 3 would be coming back down through this low. Now, I would probably be waiting for that to look for a little bit of confirmation. The way I would look at this, actually, because the ADX is set up this way, and the fact that momentum is okay, I'm probably not looking to put a hedge on or anything like that right now. I'm looking for strength here, and then if it came up and maybe gave an RSI sell signal, then I might be willing to look for a hedge for a pullback, mainly because the volatility is high. So when the volatility is high, even though the trends are up, if either one of these time frames are showing volatility is up, then I'm going to be looking for the hourly to give me a sign that I need to put the hedge back on, because I want to hold my longs. I don't want to get out of my longs. I just want to hedge them when the hourly is telling me there's some risk in place. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Go ahead and let me know if you have any questions. We'll see you next time.